I would like to start with a quote. I am Elizabeth Eckford. I am part of a group that became known as the Little Rock Nine. Prior to the desegregation of Central, there had been one high school for whites, Central High School, one high school for blacks, Dunbar. I expected that there may be something more available to me at Central that was not available at Dunbar, that there might be more courses I could pursue, that there were more options available. I was not prepared for what actually happened. So what happened? Elizabeth Eckford walked to school on that first day and changed the course of American history and the very education system of which we are all part of right now, right here at Sequoia High School. As a direct result of her pursuit for a better education, Miss Eckford and her fellow Little Rock Nine students pushed our country forward, raised awareness, and they made a difference. Today, we are incredibly fortunate to have Miss Eckford with us here to share her difficult experiences, to emphasize the importance of taking advantage of your educational opportunities. Perhaps that our distance learning show us that we should not be taken for granted, to be thoughtful with the language that we use with one another and towards each other, as well as to speak up when you see things that you know are wrong. At 15 years old, Miss Eckford did not seek to become a flashpoint. She did not seek to become a change maker. She did not seek the horrible injustices that were put upon her. She was a shy 15-year-old high school student seeking opportunities to better herself. She was just like you. Miss Eckford may describe herself as ordinary, but she was thrust into extraordinary circumstances and kept her head held high, kept her poise and composure, showed resilience, and she persevered. I hope that you will all listen carefully to her story, for in a lot of cases, it might be your story too. Good morning, Miss Eckford. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. I'm very, very happy to be at Sequoia.
May I start by asking, why are you at Sequoia High School?
I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I had disability for 20 years. I was not diagnosed until 1980. And I started talking about my high school experiences in 1997. For 30 years, none of the Little Rock Nine talked about what it was like inside Central High School, where we were knocked about every day from beginning to end. Because to do so, to start talking about those experiences is a walk through pain. But I was motivated to try to do it when I started hearing people revising history and telling stories that were not part of my experience. I just could not tolerate that. And so I have struggled for many, many years to talk about the past. And it has been students like yourselves that have encouraged me, that have been patient with me when I've had difficult moments, where I have finally reached the point where I don't cry in talking about the past. So I feel like I owe a debt to the students who helped me arrive where I am now.
Well, thank you very much for being here with us. And I know that our students are deeply appreciative. Before we start with the questions, I just wanted to read one comment submitted by a student who, after learning your lesson in the classroom as a 15-year-old and how you helped transform the country, specifically for high school education opportunities. And this student states and asks, do you realize that I would not be here at Sequoia without you? And then my English teacher probably wouldn't be my teacher also. And the student says, thank you.
Thank you. Change, important change, takes a long time. My experience is what desegregation was like. But integration at Central High School and in the schools in the Little Rock School District did not happen immediately. The placement of staff, faculty, and students was transformed over a period of more than 36 years. And the transformation came because of suits filed in federal court by the Legal Defense Fund. There was not voluntary compliance. The Little Rock school system maintained a dual school system for a very, very long time, and they were very, very reluctant to make changes. The changes that came were because of federal court orders.
After those court orders came down, well, first of all, I have the questions divided into some categories. So students have some questions on your high school experience, post-high school, your reflections on where we are as a country today. And then there were some big picture questions I thought that we might finish with. So to start in your high school experience, two-part question. What made you want to go to high school? I open with the quote, you wanted opportunities. If you could maybe explore that a little deeper. And then also, what were your expectations?
I was brought up in a very, very old-fashioned household. My parents were very, very strict. My mother had run away from home where she lived in the country, and where in many parts of rural Arkansas, education past the 8th grade was not possible for Blacks or whites. But she ran away from home. She had the help of her minister, and she came to Little Rock, where she entered Dunbar High School. Now, Dunbar had been built in 1929. Central had been built in 1927. In 1927, Central cost $1.5 million. It was built for about 2,000 students. Today, there are 2,500 students crammed into that high school, and Little Rock, and it is only one of 5 high schools in Little Rock. Dunbar was built primarily with funds from the Rosenwald Foundation. Julius Rosenwald was a Sears Company executive who had built schools for Negro students throughout Arkansas. They were mostly one-room wooden schoolhouses, so that my people would have a chance to get an education. Dunbar is one of 5 brick and mortar schools built by Julius Rosenthal. The Little Rock district planned for my parents to take courses like laundry for vocational education. But the people of Little Rock demanded more. So Dunbar had a curriculum similar to Tuskegee Institute, where the males were able to take carpentry, bricklaying, auto mechanics, plumbing, and printing. And up until the 1970s, these trades were not available in apprenticeship programs to non-whites. So that by taking these courses, the men were able to get jobs other than being janitors. I was brought up where my grandfather always said, Elizabeth, when you go to college. Both my parents worked 2 jobs to take care of 6 children, pay the mortgage and pay the car note. And I knew that my parents could not afford to send me to college, but I was brought up and I believed that not only would I go to college, but I should go to college. And education was seen as a way to provide more opportunities for yourself. And that is true now as well as then. If you prepare yourself, if you invest in yourself and take your education seriously, you can have an impact on what your future might be. If you do not, you will just be passed on by. So if you have not worked hard to achieve, ask for help when you needed it. If you have not taken your education seriously, it's not too late. I remember watching the Horatio Alger Award program. Horatio Alger was a person who had overcome many, many deep challenges. And the person who was getting this award told the story about himself. He said that on prom night, he asked his girlfriend to marry him. And she said, I can't marry you. I don't want to have dumb children. Shocking, coming from someone that you feel like you love, who you have known for for a long time. But after a long while, he started to think about the import of what she had said. He had been the class clown throughout school. So what this man did was he went back and got the first grade books and made sure he understood everything. And he did this for every grade all the way through high school. At the time, he received the Horatio Alger Award for overcoming a lot. He was one of the most successful manufacturers in the country. So if you have not invested in yourself, it's not too late. It's not too late to make a change in your life for yourself, not because of what your parents want for you, not because of what the teachers urge you to do, but for selfish reasons, because you don't want to be just passed on by.
Well, that might just do it for this. I think that's a powerful message. Elizabeth, thank you very much. Students, I hope you're listening. It's not too late. The value of education, the power of education, please take those words, great pearls of wisdom. Thank you very much. Going back to prior to going to Central, what were your expectations? What did you think was going to happen when you enrolled as a 15-year-old at Central High School?
I was looking forward to my junior year. I was almost 16. And I wanted to go to Central where there was more classes available, where there was more laboratories available, where there was a broader spectrum of education available, because I wanted to be prepared. And I knew that I needed scholarships in order to go to college. I needed scholarships, plural. And so that's why I wanted to go to Central High School. I expected to hear some hateful talk. But I thought that after students got to know me, that they would accept me. I lived in one of those fringe neighborhoods where there's a cluster of one ethnic group right next to another ethnic group. In most of Little Rock, there's not neighbors across the holler, across the pond, or where there was physical barriers separating one ethnic group and another. There were some sections of Little Rock that were all white, and those were the upper income sections of Little Rock. But throughout most of Little Rock, there were fringe neighborhoods. In the Central High neighborhood, there were some Negroes who lived within walking distance of the school. In the eastern part of Little Rock, where a new high school had been built for us, in the eastern industrial section of Little Rock, where they had dug up and scraped off a cemetery to build a school for us called Horace Mann, where I had gone to school in the 10th grade. That school still exists, but it is a middle school now. And it is a magnet school. There have been a lot of changes in education in Little Rock. When I went to Central, it was a senior high school that started at the 10th grade and went through to the 12th grade. Now, Little Rock is divided into elementary, middle schools, and senior high schools, which include the 9th grade now. So a lot has changed. At the school now, there are students from 24 different countries who speak 26 languages. There's a medical school in Little Rock, several colleges and universities and financial institutions which draw people from other parts of the world, which enrich our environment and also impact the populations of the schools.
Thank you. Sticking with the high school, I think everybody's seen the video of you walking to school that first day. Did you know the other 8 of the Little Rock 9 prior? Were you friends with them, acquaintances? What was your relationship with the other?
The superintendent of the school district said that he would make the final decision as to who would go to Central. Central was to be the first school to be desegregated. And initially, 85 students signed up to go to Central, students from Dunbar Junior High School and Horace Mann Senior High School. The superintendent was heard to say, this is too many. So he asked the principals of those schools to discourage most of the students. I remember he said that he would make the final selection. When he interviewed those students who were left, who were still on the list, he questioned them and he questioned their parents. And he did not choose anybody associated with the NAACP, which had filed suit to affect the change in Little Rock. Prior to the segregation of Central High School, 5 high schools in Arkansas, in very small towns, had voluntarily desegregated before 1957. Some schools desegregated right after the Supreme Court decision announced that segregated schooling was unconstitutional. But these high schools desegregated because they had to pay for the transportation of the Negro students from a small town to another town that was large, that had separate schooling at the secondary level for Negro students. In some cases, they had to pay for the boarding of these students who were transported to a larger city in order to get a high school education. So this was a financial drain on the small school system. Remind me of the question you had.
No problem. I'm learning a lot about that as well, so thank you. I was wondering, students were wondering, did you know any of the other 9? Were you friends with the 9 when you went to Central?
Minnie Jean Brown had been my next door neighbor in 1 year of elementary school. I knew the Ernest Green family because his mother taught my younger siblings in 1st grade. My mother had lived in the household of a school teacher when she was going to high school, and she knew the Green family. I knew Carlotta Walls' family by reputation, and Carlotta lived in my neighborhood, so we had gone to the same elementary school. I didn't know half of those who became part of the Little Rock 9. Initially, we were individuals applying to the school, those who had not been excluded up to that point. But the superintendent announced that those selected could not participate in any extracurricular activities, no sports teams, no band, no choir, couldn't act in any plays, couldn't travel with any teams to other towns. So all those selected could only go to class. And that discouraged a lot of students when they found out that this was not going to be an ordinary school year. My sister, who was a senior in high school, did not want to change schools. So that was the reason that some did not want to go. But it was only after our attempt to go to Central on that first day, and where we were turned away by the Arkansas National Guard, which then was all white, that we turned to the NAACP because we knew that we would need legal help in order to get into school. But there was a 17-day interim of uncertainty where we did not know when we would get into school or where we would wind up going to school.
It's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, once the 9 of you were in school, that you were split up in different classes and that you weren't allowed to socialize as much. I know that you did going to school and after school, but during the school day, when you were in these classrooms by yourself, there was many questions from students. Were there any nice white students? Did you make any friends, white friends in particular?
I didn't make any friends. Remember, I was a very, very shy person. But there were 2 students who engaged me in a positive way every day. Now, being a shy person, I actually look forward to the very last class of the day, which was a speech class, where there were 2 students who talked to me as though I was an ordinary person, who didn't ask me a question just to see what it sounded like. Who didn't, and in that classroom, I didn't hear anything hateful. I didn't know why, but many years later, I was told that the teacher had talked to the students and had told them what she expected and what she would not tolerate. So it made a difference in the classroom atmosphere. There were classes where, beginning in the morning at homeroom, there were 2 boys who seats were nearby and who moved away so that I wouldn't be directly across from them. In every class except one, I was in the last row, the farthest away from the door. But these 2 boys kept on their Confederate caps, didn't want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States, but the teacher would make them stand up anyway, even though they wouldn't take the pledge. And then I remember my history class, I had a really, really hateful teacher who taught things I had never heard before. And I loved history, and I understood a lot of history. But what she was teaching was the United Daughters of the Confederacy version of history, which was allowed to be taught in many Arkansas schools. But I had gone to Negro schools where the teachers didn't teach that. She even said such outrageous things. But what I remember most is that other students in the class did not seem shocked by her statements. So they were accustomed to hearing that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery, which this teacher said. And she even said that a Confederate general, Nathan Bedford Forrest, had formed the Ku Klux Klan for the protection of white women. Why would white women need protection from ex-slaves? Maybe she thought that Negro men would behave as white men had. You know, that we are very, very, various shades because of the illegal mixture that had happened during slavery. Some people even called it improving the stock. And I had, Terrence Roberts wrote about his English teacher. He said at the end of the class, he took a dozen can openers to the teacher. And back there, the can openers had a sharp point on them. And she said, "Why did you bring these to school?" And he said, "These were thrown at me during this class." Can you imagine her saying that she didn't realize this was happening during class? So there were people who pretended not to see, pretended not to hear, didn't react to what they had seen or heard. And when I started hearing these lies, I just could not tolerate it. That's why I started talking about the past. In places where people have behaved very badly, there are things that they say they didn't know, they didn't hear about it, and if they had heard about it, they would have behaved differently. Those are things that some Germans said after the concentration camps had been discovered, and these are some of the things that some of the people in Little Rock say. Some people say that what happened to us was just pranks. Do you push people down on a concrete and metal stairway as a prank? Do you scald someone in a gym shower as a prank? Do you kick a girl in the back as a prank? We were body slammed against the wall lockers every day. That was a routine part of the day. You just didn't know when and where it would happen. And there are a lot of things happened to us in the hallways. Each of us was assigned a soldier guard. How do you protect yourself? Gloria Ray said that during school, she would not use the bathroom because she didn't want flaming toilet tissue thrown over into her stall. So a lot of walls was called by the soldier guard Ridge Runner because she walked so fast. They actually had to change her guard every week because she wore them out. Carlotta said that if anybody was going to hit her, they were going to have to work to get to her. Jefferson Thomas said that he walked down the hallway with his shoulder brushing the locker because he would not feel the impact of the body slam as much if he was closer to the locker. So that we devised various ways to try to protect ourselves. We had not been trained by anybody. We were told that we could not talk back or fight back, or we would be expelled, and one was expelled. But by mid-year, we understood that after reporting these daily attacks to the vice principal, and the principal had told us from the very first day that he wouldn't react to anything we said if it was not verified by a teacher. Even after Minnie Jean Brown reported to the principal that she had seen a boy kick her daughter in the back, he said he couldn't do anything about that because it wasn't verified by a teacher. So it was a very, very difficult environment to survive.
It sounds incredibly difficult and horrible, and I'm sorry those things happened to you and your classmates in this effort. That's awful. That actually leads to another question that I would like to share from a student. And the student shared, as a student who feels marginalized and left out, your story feels somewhat familiar. And the student would like to know, what strategies did you use to cope to get through that year? How did you put up with all this abuse and walk those halls with your head held high? How did you maintain your academic focus? How did you come back to school day after day? What strategies did you use?
There was one day that I just could not stay. I called my grandfather to come pick me up. You see, it was too dangerous for us to ride a bus. So that we arrived at school and were picked up either by parents or neighbors. And I knew at that time of day that my father was at work and he couldn't come get me. So I called my grandfather, who had a small grocery store. My grandfather had a deep love for family. He was a very, very stingy man. When we visited the store, we could not count on getting a soda pop or a candy bar. You might get one, but you couldn't expect to get one. So when I called my grandfather, I knew that he had to lock the store, lose profit to come and get me, but I knew I could depend on him to come and get me. Another time when I was absent from school is because I was in the hospital having a checkup. I had had some problems, and so I was away from school. But I realized that they were trying to drive us away. What a lot of people don't know is that among the 9 of us, there was one girl who had a serious heart condition. She had a hole in her heart. And this was decades before open heart surgery was even possible. Thelma Mothershed said that every morning her mother would say, Thelma, you don't have to go back to that big old school. But Thelma insisted on coming because she had missed several years of elementary school because she had been too frail to go to school. How could you leave and leave Thelma behind? There were two reasons that we tried to stick it out. We had seen other efforts to make a change that was very quickly closed because people gave up or they were driven away. We knew that we started out with individual motives, wanting to get a better education. But very quickly, we understood that a lot of people were depending on us. I received letters from all across the world. So there were two reasons for me particularly that I tried to keep going. And even though in a lot of instances, all I could do was just show up. We knew that if we were gradually driven away, that would be the end for a long time. So that we tried to hold on. And after one of us was expelled for finally retaliating, it made it much, much more important for us to hold on. And then in spring, when they realized that Ernest Green, the only senior among us, would be the first Negro student to graduate from Central High School, they concentrated their efforts on him. But every day they passed out cards with hate messages on them, or mimeograph sheets with hate messages on them. So we knew that there was adult involvement, but it was many, many years later that one of these people who was involved in this group that was organized to attack us told us that they met every afternoon after school at a home of an adult and planned their attacks. So these things didn't just happen. There were people who said hateful stuff that were not part of this group. There were people who struck out who were not part of this group, but you could tell the difference. Once I held on to somebody who had been shoved into me at the wall locker. Her response told me that she was not one of those people who felt entitled to attack us. And I heard across the hall my soldier guard say, let her go. He's the same one who said that what happened the day before he didn't see, because he wasn't trying to protect me. So that there were things that happened all the time, and sometimes they were a surprise. I can remember being scalded in the gym shower 4 times. And I remember there was no divider between the shower stalls. So I could see that the girl on the right of me and the girl on the left of me had turned their water off before the water suddenly became scalding. So that there were people, there were bystanders who knew what was going to happen and did nothing. Doing nothing is a decision that an individual makes, and it has consequences. I remember and I treasure those 2 students from my speech class who engaged me every day, because by talking to me in a kind way, they let me know that they didn't hate me because of they could look at me and see the difference, but they didn't hate me because of my difference. If you reach out to support someone who's being harassed, it can help someone live another day. That is not an exaggeration. I don't ever ask anybody to try to defend someone who's being bullied. That can be dangerous. but anybody can treat other people in the way that you want to be treated. You know, sometimes we say things that are hurtful, but we don't understand the depth of the hurt that is being inflicted. Sometimes girls call other girls street hostesses or bee witches, and they don't understand that they're denigrating their own sex. You would have a different feeling if a male was doing this. But it is hurtful regardless of the gender of the person doing it. Just try to treat other people in the way that you want to be treated, and you will have a better community, a more loving community.
Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. That was beautiful and poignant. For the students who were the bullies, the terrorists, the ones that were committing all these atrocious acts against you and the rest of the Little Rock Nine, I had several students ask the question, has anybody ever apologized for the way that they treated you? If so, how would you respond? And could you have forgiven them?
One person that apologized is the person that is most prominent in that mob scene picture. She looks like the poster child for hate. She apologized in 40 years later, in 1997, and she also called and apologized in 1963, when she had children who would be in school, and by then she understood that this picture kept reappearing, that it would have an impact on her own children. But she apologized. We spent about 2 years together talking to students who came to Little Rock. But I did notice that she claimed to have amnesia about the past. How can you apologize when you won't acknowledge what you've done? Is that a real apology? And the reason I know about their meeting with this woman who called herself the president of the Central High Mothers League is because one of them confessed to a writer about their organizing and planning their attack. Two people who have apologized are people who had terminal illnesses. And so they apologized when they knew their deaths were near. And also, I have been told that someone wrote a letter of apology. But in reading some of the books about the past, there are many people who have not changed at all. And there's even one fellow who was in my history class who had a very distinct appearance. I didn't remember his name, but I remember what he looked like. And so he was located. And he was very proud of what he had done and unapologetic. But remember, don't let other people define you. Understand who you are. Talk to the older people in your family, and that will help you understand how your family arrived at where they are now. And it will also give you a sense of identity. Don't let other people tell you who you are, especially when they have hateful messages about who you are.
Again, thank you very much. Terrific advice. I want to move to where we are as a country today, but before I do that, I want to finish up the high school a bit and maybe finish on a little bit of a lighter note. Friday is our school's club day, where students will be able to go out and visit different tables to be able to join different clubs. we understand from you speaking with us today that none of the Little Rock Nine were allowed to join any clubs. You were not allowed to participate in extracurricular activities and sports and the theater. If you were in high school today, is there a club that you might be interested in joining? What interests would you have?
If there were a French club, I would like that. If there were a book club, I would like that. I've been a lifelong reader since third grade. I've had many diverse experiences in my life. I've been extremely poor, but I've always been able to afford a used book. And so that's always been important to me. I'm nothing musical because I can't hold a note. I move my lips when people are groups are singing, but I don't inflict the sound on anybody. I remember in college that I became interested in the theater. I worked backstage building sets and doing makeup, and I also took a role in one of the plays. So I probably would be interested in that.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing. That's a cool little insight. Now I want to dip back. We were talking about students who had harassed and bullied you, and that in fact there was one person who did not, and still to this day was proud of what they did. Pivoting to where we are as a country today, and we keep hearing about how polarized and how divided we are. Can you contextually share your feelings about where we are today versus 1957? Where are some areas of growth and perhaps optimism? Because I think it's just like the gloom news every time you turn it on.
I prepared to be a history teacher, and I know from the beginning that those inalienable rights did not apply to anybody other than white male property owners. The United States government has stolen Indian land, displaced people, moved them along the Trail of Tears where many died. They brought Chinese men in to build the railroads, heavy, dangerous work blasting through mountains to build a transcontinental railroad. But they could not bring their wives to the United States. And in parts of the country, they were not able to own property. So that the United States has not a straight line going toward equality, but has had periods where equality was promised. It was promised during Reconstruction, but Reconstruction was ended, and federal troops were removed from the South, and it almost was a return to slavery. The tenant farmer system and the sharecropper system was very, very disadvantageous to my people. It was close to slavery. And there's a movie called Slavery by Any Other Name. It's also the title of a book, where people were convicted in illegal courts and shipped off to work in dangerous mines, to work off their so-called fines for crimes that they had not committed. So that there have been a lot of inequities. But what is different today is that more people are recognizing injustice when they see it, because more of you have cameras, and some police officers have cameras that photograph what is happening. So there are more credible witnesses to when atrocities occur. That is what is different about today. But another thing that is different is that there are news organizations that work to foment division. There are people who use the language of the evangelicals who are not religious who behave in an irreligious way, but they use that language to have people join them who have those religious views. There's a lot of hatred that continues to be apparent. But if you educate yourself and are able to discern the difference in the messages that are promulgated, you will be a better informed citizen and a less person prone to be manipulated for hatred.
Thank you. Just pivoting from your view of American history, which you say is maybe moving in the right direction, up and down, and maybe slowly in some instances, and definitely we have a long way to go. Just to pivot back to our school community, you know, one of our mottos is we're a place of friends. You had said that Central has people from all these different countries and languages, and I wish I had those numbers at my fingertips. It's an incredibly impressive, diverse group of students we have here at Sequoia High School. But I think the reality is that we still have divisions within our school. They're socioeconomic divisions. They might be ethnic, racial divisions. Ms. Eckford, would you have any advice or words of wisdom for our students who are listening and watching, also for our teachers and staff, about some strategies or tools that we could maybe bridge some of those differences to kind of enhance the sense of community so that we could also be moving forward towards more of a place of equity?
I remember that I used to look down on people involved in sports. I used to look down on people who involved in sports until I went back to school after the Army and I encountered a former classmate who was now a principal who came to the school to advocate for one of his students who wanted to go to college. And this person had been a football player, somebody I had looked down on. I didn't realize that participation in sports also encouraged leadership abilities. So that understand that the person next to you that you see has a lot more to them than what you immediately see. That the people around you have a lot of potential. That part of their identity is their economic class, their ethnic background, but that's not all of their identity. Try to get to know people other than their labels. Try to get to know the inner person if possible.
Really, that's terrific. Get to know people beyond their labels. Thank you, Ms. Eckford. On that theme, another thing that I'm very proud of at the school, we have a lot of activist groups, a lot of students who are proactive and trying to make positive change, whether it's the Dream Club or the mask that we have you wearing, thank you. The March for Our Lives Club, we have environmental clubs, we have the BSU. We have all these clubs that are really active in trying to make a change in our country. Specifically to our students, any advice, any words of wisdom, encouragements that their actions are going to make a difference and can make a difference and to kind of fuel them to continue their efforts?
You're going to be acted upon, whether you're a bystander or whether you are somebody out there taking a stand. So try to be an advocate for yourself and not just be a bystander. Use your voice, but make it an informed voice. Your life will be richer. Thank you.
Terrific. Use your informed voice. And I think that I know that all of our teachers at the school say your voice matters, students, so please use it and do not let anybody silence you. As we kind of wrap up, I give you a choice of questions here. We are running a little bit short on time, but I've heard you speak on the use of language, and particularly the N-word. We are coming out of distance learning, and I genuinely do believe that our students are not taking education for granted. I'm seeing better efforts this year than I've seen in years past because students realize the value of education. So on either one of those topics, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
I'll tell you why I just say the N-word. The Supreme Court decision outlawing segregated schooling came about partly because of the doll experiment of two social psychologists, Dr. Kenneth and Mamie Clark. They took some very young Negro girls and showed them a doll that looked Negroid and showed them a doll that looked like a Caucasian. And they asked them, which doll is good? The majority of these young Negro children said that the white doll is good. And it was a demonstration that discrimination engendered feelings of inferiority. So when you use self-hating language, you are revealing something about yourself that you may not be aware of. You're revealing some self-hatred. That's what's going on when an African American person uses the N-word, or when a person who is a couple of generations removed from immigration uses that fresh off the boat and other hateful language. That's what's going on. It's some self-hatred. So be aware and stop hating yourselves.
Thank you, Ms. Eckford. Just kind of a final question, and it's going to be super open-ended to you. You've covered terrific topics, and I think there's a lot of really amazing nuggets of inspiration throughout this discussion today. Through your own personal lens, what you've gone through, learning what you've learned, any kind of, it's open question to you, any questions that I have not asked that you would like to share with our students? Words of advice?
Become readers, because it would expand your world beyond your environment. Question authority figures, because not all of them are authorities. And you know, from our recent past, there are some politicians who will outright lie. So question authority. And look at a variety of sources, listen to a variety of sources, and so that you can synthesize, classify, and be able to distill what sounds like truth to you.
Thank you. Sequoia High School, we have Elizabeth Eckford here with us today, who at a 15-year-old, at a lot of your age, walked into history with her head held high, showing amazing courage. We've had an amazing opportunity to hear from her today, sharing her experiences on the power of education, the power of language, the importance of taking advantage of your opportunities, to use your voice and become active and not to let anybody silence you. These are all incredibly important lessons from a national historical treasure, a civil rights icon for the United States. It is with great appreciation, Ms. Eckford, on behalf of Sequoia High School, that we say thank you very much for joining us today. And we wish you all the best, and we would hope to be able to see you in the years to come, coming back and visiting with us.
These are my final years, I can tell that. But it's worthwhile being with young people. These are my final years. So thank you for your attention. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your answers. Have a good day. Thank you.
Teachers, thank you for tuning in. Students, please thank your teachers for allowing you this opportunity. Thank you, Sequoia.